The big rejig, the big reset as far as India and US's relationship is concerned. We are talking about the new post made by US President Donald Trump and of course the reply which was given by Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Let's discuss details. In the last 24 hours, US President Donald Trump has taken a noticeably softer stance on India and Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Infamous for his U-turns, Donald Trump has once again changed his tune, this time praising Narendra Modi. Amid ongoing tensions between India and the United States over tariffs, Trump said he will always remain friends with Modi, calling him a great Prime Minister. He added that while he does not like what Modi is doing at the moment, India and the US share a special relationship and there is nothing to worry about.
I'll always be friends with Modi. He's great. Prime Minister, he's great. I'll always be friends, but I just don't like what he's doing at this particular moment. But India and the United States have a special relationship. There's nothing to worry about.
Now, this conciliatory tone comes just days after Donald Trump lashed out on Truth Social, claiming that the US had lost India and Russia to China and expressing disappointment over India's continued oil purchases from Moscow.
I don't think we have. I've been very disappointed that India would be buying so much oil, as you know, from Russia. And I let them know that. We put a very big tariff on India. 50% tariff, very high tariff. I get along very well with Modi, as you know. He's great. He was here a couple of months ago. In fact, we went to the Rose Garden and the grass was so soaking wet. It was such a terrible place to have a news conference. I said, well, let's use a beautiful white stone emblematic of the White House, okay? And it's been very well received. But we had a news conference on the grass. That was my last news conference I had on the grass because everybody sunk in. You probably sunk in. Every reporter out there, they ruined their shoes. We made that change. It's been a really well-received change.
But what Donald Trump has not acknowledged is that his own punitive tariffs are fueling the rift. Over the past weeks, both he as well as his close aide Peter Navarro have unleashed a series of sharp attacks on India. Now, following Donald Trump's remarks, Prime Minister Narendra Modi has also finally broken his strategic silence. In a post made on social media profile X, Prime Minister Modi said, and I'm going to quote the lines from his post here, that deeply appreciates and fully reciprocates President Donald Trump's sentiments and positive assessment of India-US ties. He in fact described the relationship as very positive and forward-looking, reaffirming the comprehensive global strategic partnership between the two nations. This is Modi's first direct response since Washington imposed back-to-back tariffs on Indian imports, slapping a combined 50% duty, citing India's discounted Russian oil purchases. India has very strongly criticized the move, calling the measures unjustified in nature. Now with Donald Trump publicly stressing friendship while voicing unease over India's policies and Modi replying in a diplomatic but yet a firm tone, both the sides appear to be balancing personal respect with strategic discomfort. With this softer tone on both the sides, is this the beginning of a reset, a first step toward patching up strained India-US ties or not? Only time will tell. So a big reset is there in the picture at the moment. We've been telling you the details with regards to what Donald Trump has posted and how Prime Minister Modi also diplomatically and very strategically responded to the kind of comments that President Donald Trump was made. All right, let's discuss this further with special guests joining us on the broadcast, Professor of International Politics, Lancaster University, and he's joining us live from London, Dr. Amalendu Misra. Also joining us on the broadcast is former Indian ambassador to USA, live from New Delhi, Ambassador Meera Shankar, and also leader of Republican Party, joining us live straight from Texas, Srini Raghavan. Thank you so much, all of you, for speaking to News9 on this very important diplomatic affair, of course. Mr. Raghavan, let me first come to you. I want to understand from you, do you really think that this kind of reset that we have been speaking about, it is actually going to change the strained relationship at the moment as far as the trade tariffs and the tensions between India and US is concerned?
Thank you for having me on the broadcast. And then Good morning and good evening to everybody. I think what you're seeing is a real negotiation play out, right? So I won't call it reset. I think what you're seeing today is another tactic that is being used in this whole framework by both leaders. And tomorrow, I won't be surprised if Trump tweets something where he says, "Hey, if this is not having an effect, then this could be a dead economy or this or that or whatever words he's used in the past that could come back again." And Modi is also free to do that or keep a strategic silence. So I don't think that this is the end of anything or the start of anything. I think this is part of the journey. What eventually will happen is that there will be some kind of a deal. Now, both sides will proclaim victory. US will say we got the best deal, and the Indians will say that they got the best deal. But I think we are a little bit far away from that. I don't think any tangible details have been ironed out. But I don't think this is neither the start nor the end. This is just another step in the journey.
All right, let me quickly have the opening remark from Ambassador Meera as well. Ambassador Meera, I want to understand from you, what are your thoughts about this big development? Do you think that this exchange, which has been going on social media at the moment between the two big leaders, it can actually translate into a concrete policy progress?
I think it's an opening. That's what it provides. It provides an opening for the two countries to create the circumstances to re-engage on the trade issue. The tariffs still remain. The tone is softer, but the tariffs still remain on India. And from India's point of view, till those tariffs actually are reduced or come down and there's a trade deal, I think the relationship remains in difficulty. It's a tense period. The signals we are getting, of course, from institutional US, that is, the Foreign Office, the State Department, the Pentagon, and elsewhere, is that they want continuity in the relationship. So you've had the 2+2 dialogue between the ministries of external affairs and defense on both sides, officials of the two sides. You've had the US military participating in the Yuddh Abhyas military exercise in India. You've had the Indian military participating in a military exercise in Alaska. But, is it possible really to segment the relationship? I think it will be difficult if, there is economic pain in India, which is felt primarily in the labor-intensive export sectors of textiles and garments, gems and jewelry, leather and leather products, marine products. I think it will have an impact on domestic public opinion in India, which will make it more difficult to really try and bridge the gap, if you will, in the positions of the two sides. But what this exchange between Prime Minister Modi and President Trump provides is an opening, because as of now, the rhetoric in the US was being ramped up. You had Peter Navarro, you had Howard Lutnick, everybody basically on an India bashing spree, as though, we had become their favorite whipping boy, given that they couldn't dare to take on China, because they had to walk back. They came to power promising their MAGA constituency that they were going to be really tough on China. But when they imposed the 145% tariffs, China used its leverage through its dominance of critical minerals and rare earths, and the US had to walk back the tariffs that it had imposed. So now there's an interim arrangement with 30% tariffs on China and a grace period which has been extended till November for negotiations to continue. And in the meanwhile, this interim arrangement continues. So having started with China, with which the US has a $300 billion trade deficit, they're picking on India, with which it has a $45 billion trade deficit in both goods and services. Goods is about 41 billion or 42, and services is just $3 billion that India has a small surplus, it's broadly balanced. And there are analysts in India who say that
Right.
if you take into account the fees that Indian students pay in the US, the royalty payments, the intellectual property rights payments, the technology collaboration payments that Indian companies make, then the US probably has a surplus of 30 to 40 billion dollars in services. Having said that, my only point is that whipping India doesn't really resolve the economic issues in the US, which have led to this protectionism, because we are the 10th largest trading partner for the US and our trade surplus is very limited.
Right.
Most of our exports are labor intensive.
All right, Ambassador Bira, I heard you. Dr. Mishra, let me now come back to you. I want to ask you the question with regards to how India has kept its stance very, very clear from the very beginning with regards to the red lines as far as the trade negotiations between India and the US is concerned. Now, both the leaders are saying that we are trying to benefit our own citizens, while US says, while Donald Trump claims that it is all about making America great again, Prime Minister Modi has categorically mentioned that we are not going to compromise with the interest of our farmers, our dairy sectors this time around. Do you think with all of these chatter happening around in the circle, of course that white flag post which was there by Donald Trump, as he said that looks like that we have lost India and Russia against the deepest, quote unquote, deepest, darkest China. Do you think there's still a going back, since he has been now touching upon how good of a rapport he shares with Prime Minister Modi from past couple of days?
Well, I think there is a saying in English, the proof of pudding is in the eating. Unless and until we see United States getting rid of the tariff, there is no point talking about what is going on in the mind of Trump or what is going on in the mind of Modi. What is for certain is the fact that Mr. Trump had dug himself in a big hole. It was his own making. In fact, the statement that he made yesterday regarding Russia and India, that losing them to deepest, darkest China, in fact, pushed United States to a certain extent to what you may call self-isolationist position. He felt that he has completely isolated himself, and he has no friends. And this trade tariffs that he is imposing on all sorts of nations and actors all over the world is not doing him any good. So what I would see, the statement that he made today regarding the question that he received from the journalist is primarily to sort of assure himself that nothing is lost. So he himself is feeling the pinch, and he feels that the United States economy is being affected in the long run. So he somehow has to sort of step back from the bravado that he has had all these days and weeks and months. So this is a damage limitation act on behalf of Trump on himself. So, but unless and until he sort of goes back to the drawing board, so to speak, and says that, okay, we can negotiate, renegotiate, and let's meet somewhere in the middle, I would not read too much. So Trump is basically assuring himself that not everything is lost.
Mr. Raghavan, let me come back to you and ask you about the damage control this time around. Two big developments. The one post that I have spoken about, how Donald Trump himself has accepted that it looks like Russia and India has been lost to China. The other big development is Prime Minister Modi not participating at the UNGA and Dr. S. Jaishankar representing India stands instead. How do you take these two big developments? Because I want to speak about the personal rapport these two leaders used to share, how these two have promoted each other in their respective countries and vice versa. So I want to speak about how things can be rolled back, because the damage is already done. Things have been said. Peter Navarro goes on to attack India on a daily basis, and still you are expecting India to bow down.
So I think what is being forgotten in this argument is the US imposed tariffs on China back in 2018-2019 timeframe. So they have been under tariffs for 6 years. These negotiations, or what you're calling attacks, or these statements have been being made for the last 6 years. So, I mean, I travel to India very often. Everybody was rejoicing that, hey, US is putting tariffs on China. This is good for India. But we have to be fair. End of the day, whether India is the 10th largest partner or the 8th partner, honestly, does not matter. They will go down the list. And even with countries like Thailand, I mean, they are imposing 20% tariff. Thailand and US had 0% in between. And when they saw all the industries move from China to Thailand or China to Vietnam, immediately those tariffs were in place. So I think I'll reinforce the point. What you're really seeing here is the game being played out. And all these games were probably being played out inside closed doors. And we were not here discussing this. We were not aware of every move. Only certain confidential people knew all this stuff. But now Trump's negotiators, Navarro and all these guys, right, they're out in the open and they're making statements. And, that's what you're really seeing this play out. So, as far as India is concerned and whether, Modi ji attends the summit or not, those kind of things, I think those are, again, moving of the pawns or moving of the chessboard inside the chessboard. I think what really needs to happen is a substantive dialogue needs to happen, and not only India tariffs are high. India puts a lot of tariffs on the US, so those need to come down in whatever way, and then the tariffs from the US to India will go down. I think also, as part of the discussion, what is being lost, or at least what we are not seeing, is India can bring stuff to the table. Why, as part of the negotiation, if I were Modi, this is what I would ask for. I would say, hey, guarantee Mr. Donald Trump, use your power, and if you have so much leverage, guarantee India a seat on the Security Council, like a permanent seat forever. That is a demand that you can make. Modi ji can put that out and say, this is one of the demands, this needs to be met. Similarly, stop selling weapons to so and so, or stop supporting so and so. Put these out there, right? I'm sure these are part of negotiations, but we are not seeing those. The way it's coming across right now is India is being punished for Russian oil purchases, whereas that is only one segment of the whole puzzle. So I think that broader negotiations need to happen. Probably they are happening. Maybe we are not seeing those. But India also needs to step up and very clearly say, just like China did, US needs minerals from China, right? We know that. So no, the Chinese have come back and those negotiations are happening. If India needs something from the US or on the world stage, if India needs to become a world actor, just say, we need a permanent place in the Security Council. End of story. Make that happen. Sell us the latest and greatest arms and ammunition. Give us a 10% discount on oil. Russia is giving me a 5%. Why don't you give me 10%? Guarantee that for the next 5 years, Mr. Trump. If you're so powerful,
Mr. Raghavan,
and if you want a deal, here's a deal.
Mr. Raghavan, my apologies for interrupting you over there. I don't think it's only about the trade negotiations. I think things became sour a long time back, specifically around Operation Sindoor, when Donald Trump tried saying that ceasefire was achieved because of him, while India kept its stance very, very clear that there was no interference of any other world leader but a direct contact between India and Pakistan, and rest is history.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with your point. And then I think India, again, I'm not trying to dictate diplomacy to the likes of Mr. Jaishankar or Mr. Modi, but what is not coming across is how is India going to take a tough stand? How is India going to say, no, Mr. Trump, we did not negotiate, you did not negotiate, you were not part of the deal, here's what happened. And let's see, right? Because usually what happens, and we have seen this in the past, when you go very hard on Trump, he backs off or he changes the tactics. And that's what we want. We want a reset, right? That's what we're looking for. It doesn't need to be friendly. End of the day, Modi stands there for the people of India. Trump stands to represent the American people. And it's not about them being friends. She and him are not friends. Or maybe they were friends 5 years ago, 7 years ago, before the tariffs were put in place. But now what is happening is tangible access from the US to those minerals from China. China is getting tangibly reduced tariffs, but the tariffs are still in place. So again,
Absolutely.
I think personal relationships matter in a negotiation because it forms the basis. It's the trust. It forms the basis. But then also what also depends is, who you're negotiating with and what their temperament is and how are they going to make the chess moves. So I would very clearly say this, unless this is part of some huge negotiation strategy, which I'm not aware of, just say very clearly, Mr. Trump, you had no role to play. Thank you. And then let's see how it works out. Attack a punch with a counter punch.
All right, that's a really interesting point that you have made. Ambassador Meera, let me come back to you. Since we are living in the time of global uncertainty, like very correctly highlighted by Mr. Raghavan over there, that a couple of years ago we know, in fact we know that US and China are not friends, but there are some trade negotiations that have happened between the two countries. We are looking at a world where people are looking at China becoming the alternative global leader at the moment. Perhaps that's the reason why US has finally softened its stance towards India after seeing that particular viral picture between Putin, Xi and also Modi sharing the similar kind of stage at the very recent Tianjin SCO summit. But I want to understand from you, we are also looking at Pakistan cozying up to US, Pakistan having the bid with a bid to cozy up to Russia as well at the SCO summit. We heard that audio clip as well. In that stance, don't you think US saying that you have had a good rapport with India, you have a very great relationship with Prime Minister Modi, he's a great leader, a great Prime Minister, don't you think you should have taken a one-sided stance towards India during Operation Sindoor? You should have condemned one-sidedly Pahalgam terrorist attack.
Well, great powers always have multiple objectives. They are never pursuing a single objective. They have many balls in play. And with President Trump, he has been criticized for perhaps allowing the enrichment of his family through deals with Pakistan to cloud his perspective on the relationship with India. To what extent that is true, we really don't know. But yes, visibly, there was a deal and there was a shift on Pakistan. So we don't know. I think there are limits because Pakistan is a declining economy. Its political situation is precarious with Imran Khan still in jail. And so I think it's a self-limiting relationship. There are radical groups which can cause problems for Pakistan itself, for India, for the world at some stage, as we've seen in the past. So my sense is we don't need to bother too much with that. It is a self-limiting relationship. But I think what we have to be concerned about is the ease with which the US turned on India with regard to tariffs, because even with regard to purchases of Russian oil, China is the largest purchaser, EU is the second largest, then is India. So again, we see that there's a very selective picking of a target. But yes, President Trump's latest messages signal some softening of the US tone and perhaps a reflection of the criticism that has been there in the US that India is being pushed towards Russia and China by US actions, which have, in a sense, destroyed the relationship, which has been built up over so many decades, actually, almost 2 decades, by different administrations, whether it was Democrats or Republican in the US, and whether it was Congress or BJP or coalitions in India. This was a relationship which enjoyed broad support. And to swing from that to one where we become the favored whipping boy, both with regard to Russia, where we are seen as having caused the war, which has nothing to do with us. It really was caused by NATO's continued eastward expansion and ignoring of the concerns that Russia had expressed about that. A kind of a red line for them, which the US ambassadors had conveyed to Washington in the past. So it's a moot point whether actually putting all this blame on India is going to help, particularly when Trump is also trying to actually talk to the main principal, which is Russia. He has had a summit meeting with President Putin. No additional sanctions have been put on Russia, but then you hit India. So it's illogical. It won't achieve any impact. But what it does is it risks actually causing disruption in the India-US relationship. From India's point of view, and I think Prime Minister Modi has signaled this through his positive response to President Trump's positive message, that perhaps there's an effort to tamp down the differences and to re-engage. I think that is really what these messages provide. They are positive in the sense that there is an opportunity for both countries to try to explore
Right.
the possibility of re-engaging on the trade issues.
All right, like I've said that we are living in the times of global uncertainty. A lot can happen going forward, of course, and we have our fingers crossed. We want everything to go well between India and US. Of course, the trade tensions should ease down by now because we have seen a lot of tensions in the past couple of days. Unfortunately, I've run out of time on this chat here, but Srini Raghavan, Ambassador Meera Shankar and Dr. Amalendu Mishra, thank you so much for speaking to News9, putting your perspective across.